Wide receiver. Jamie has Chris Godwin 20th in PPR. Heath has him 36th. Once again, I'm going to give Heath the first word here. Anti-Chris Godwin, 30. That's wild, man. 36. He caught 3 touchdowns last year, and he was 18th per game. What do you got for me?
This is also me going completely against. I've always been the Chris Godwin guy, and
Yeah.
I'm not particularly comfortable with this one, but I am worried how much different this Tampa Bay offense is going to look. They've thrown 1,482 passes the last 2 seasons. They've got a defensive head coach. They're going to have a worse quarterback. Tom Brady's not going to get to choose what they do anymore. I'm afraid the pass volume, is with both Evans and Godwin still there, could crater to like 550, 575 attempts. And the pass type is probably going to be worse because it's going to be Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. So I'm pretty concerned about the Buccaneers offense as well. There's a lot of teams that we're concerned about.
Mm-hmm. Pause real quick here. Before we go to Jamie, give me a little context on where 550 pass attempts would rank.
Below average, league median last year. So that'd be like the 15th and the 16th teams in pass attempts, 571 last year.
Okay. All right, Jamie, you still have faith in Chris Godwin in PPR. And by the way, Heath has him 34th, not 36th. But Jamie, you have him 20th.
I still think this is going to be the guy that leads the team in targets and receptions. And if you look at Baker's history, however you want to view it, his time in Cleveland, that was his best option, was his slot receiver with Jarvis Landry. And so that's still where I think Chris Godwin will play. I don't think it's going to be Kyle Trask. If it's Trask, then I will definitely be closer to where Heath is on Godwin. I think Evans is the one that loses the most. I think Baker's downfield throws are clearly going to be a problem by comparison to Tom Brady. Obviously, volume is going to be a concern because they're not going to allow this passing game to be as prolific as it was when you're talking about the greatest of all time to Baker Mayfield. So Godwin loses, but Godwin was a guy that we were valuing when he was healthy as a top 10 wide receiver. So, you take the downgrade into action and, just understand what you're getting. A year removed from the ACL, so hopefully he's back to being closer to where he was, and he wasn't exactly horrible last year. So I think he's still good enough to be a number 2 receiver in PPR. Non-PPR, half PPR, I think he's a number 3 receiver at best. I still like him better than Evans in every format. But I think in PPR, even with Baker, he could be a number 2 PPR receiver.
Yeah. And you want to follow up there, Heath?
No, I think I'm probably also just like I have some Baker Mayfield reflux.
I also want to say, Heath is in general, I think, a little higher on the year 2. We'll talk about a couple of year 2 guys.
Yeah.
But Jamie has only Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave ahead of Chris Godwin in terms of these second-year guys. Heath has basically all of the relevant ones, like not Romeo
Most
Dobbs.
of them, right. Yeah, most of them.
All of the ones who were drafted in the
Alec
first
Pierce
round
or
last
Chris
year.
Godwin?
I do have Chris Godwin ahead of Alec Pierce.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Drake London. Jamie, you're pretty high on Drake London. You got him 22nd. Heath says, hold my taco and beer. I've got him 14th. Jamie, this time you get the first word. 22nd on Drake London, not 14th. Actually, I think it's more interesting if Heath goes first on this because, 22nd. That's a lot of.
My argument is pretty easy. Heath just said he's got concerns about the quarterback and volume. I mean, that's Atlanta to a T.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely projecting some improvement for the second-year wide receivers, and it probably won't happen for all of them. But the guys that it does happen for, as Adam has so astutely pointed out, are the guys who win you leagues. And so I think I just want to take as many shots at these second-year wide receivers as I can, and the ones that hit, I'm going to have league winners. I think London absolutely, things were terrible for him with Marcus Mariota. They were not a lot better with Ritter, but they were a little better, and I would expect both Ritter and London to make some improvement. I think that he has no problem at all getting a 25 to 30% target share, even with Kyle Pitts on the field. And I'm not. I guess I have similar feelings. I'm trying to figure out why those projections are so much different for London and Godwin, other than I am just projecting some improvement for London this year. And he was pretty good, other than the fact that he didn't score any touchdowns in the last 5 weeks of last year. A lot of times we see rookie wide receivers like Mon-Fri St. Brown, a hot finish, and then it carries over into the next year.
Why do you have London ahead of Olave? 5 spots ahead of Olave.
Because I'm projecting Michael Thomas to play right now.
But you have to project Kyle Pitts to play, and everything London did at the end of the year, he did without Pitts.
That's true. I think London Pitts is not going to be a problem for London. I think they will both earn a 25 to 30% target share. I don't know that will happen for Thomas and Olave, because I think Alvin Kamara is going to get, or whoever's playing running back is going to get a lot more targets than the Atlanta.
Tell me that right now you think Derek Carr is better than Desmond Ridder.
He probably is. I mean, I haven't seen very much of Ridder.
Nah, that's true. That's true. All right, Jamie, anything you want to add, or should we go to the next one?
No,
Okay, cool.
I think
Good
London's
stuff.
a very good receiver, but I think Godwin will have more catches, more targets, and maybe as many touchdowns.
Let's talk about Calvin Ridley. 19th for Jamie, 30th for Heath. Okay, Jamie, your turn. It's actually now 29th for Heath. Things have changed a lot. All right, 19th for Jamie, 29th for Heath. This is Calvin Ridley. Go for it, Jamie.
I think I'm just coming around to the fact that everything, this was post going to Arizona and the owners' meetings. I was leaning Christian Kirk over Ridley. Then you come out of that and you just, hearing from what people in Jacksonville are saying, that he's probably going to have the opportunity for a big season. I still think that Kirk will have more catches and more targets, but Ridley will have more yards, maybe similar or close enough in catches, but the touchdowns I think are going to be in his favor. And so this is just really buying into Trevor Lawrence. He's going to be probably my most rostered quarterback this year, based on where he's getting drafted. I just want pieces of this Jacksonville offense. I think they're ready to take the next step. They're going to have a very easy schedule. Offense is going to be much better. And I think Ridley is, if he's anything close to what he was, this is probably too low.
19th.
Oh, yeah. If he's what he was, I definitely think it is. I don't know if I think that Trevor Lawrence will be better this year than Matt Ryan was when Ridley was at his best, but he could be as good. I have a hard time projecting the targets for Kirk, Ridley, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, those 4, and what the spread's going to be. And so I could be convinced when we get into training camp, Calvin Ridley, all reports are he looks like Calvin Ridley, everything's a full go, that I would put Ridley at number 1 in terms of the number of targets. But that's not the way that I have it right now. I got him tied with Kirk.
Yeah. I also, we obviously have no idea, but I'm sort of approaching it from a fantasy drafting standpoint as Ridley's going to be the top guy. Kirk won't be too far behind. And then I don't really care about Ingram and Jones so much. Like, I'm sure Ingram will have good weeks and he'll be worth drafting. But right. Zay Jones is not, to me, not going to have a big role. And Ingram is a tight end. He's going to be like what we've always seen from Evan Ingram. They'll tease us. That's just, I have no idea if that's true. That's just.
No, I don't think that Doug Peterson probably knows exactly how the targets are going to shake out at this point. It's definitely a guessing game. There's some rust to knock off.
Yeah. So I think my point is a lot of people are just going to take different views on that situation, and at least until we get to the preseason and get
pieces of it. I mean,
yes.
I agree with you. Ingram takes a step back. We talked about that in F15.5. Zay Jones clearly takes a step back, but they're still going to have some weeks where they're very good. Those 2 guys in particular. I just think Trevor Lawrence is headed for a huge year.
But when you say get pieces of it, which pieces do you want?
Oh, the 2 you mentioned, for sure. And Etienne.
And Lawrence.
Yeah, those are the ones you target. But, I think when you start to go through the tight end landscape and you say, okay, I've missed on the top guys. And the top guys for me, I think there's 6 or 7 of them, depending on how you want to view Kittle and Waller and those 2 in particular, or maybe Pitts if you want to throw them in that conversation. But to me, there's 7. It's who's got a good quarterback. Same conversation we usually have. Who's got a chance to be 1 or 2 in targets with, hopefully a growing situation. So like Dalton Schultz, for example, if the quarterback is right in Houston. Although I read in Peter King's column today that they may pass on C.J. Stroud and go defense, which would be very interesting. What happens there? But you get an injury to Kirk or to Ridley, or Ridley's not right. Zay Jones still has a ton of value. He was very good last year, especially how late he's going to go this year.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Heath. Sorry.
No, I don't. I'm not particularly excited about Ingram. It's just that I think that tight end role in Doug Peterson's offense is going to, like, there's going to be 100+ targets thrown to the tight end. And so that makes it harder if all 3 wide receivers are involved. The pie is just not big enough.
Did you have cake or pie for your birthday?
Ice cream cake, the best.
Oh, yeah. It's tier 1. Okay, this will be the last wide receiver we talk about here. We'll save some of the younger guys for another show. George Pickens, Treylon Burks were the other 2 that I wanted to discuss. But just going through some of the numbers, I gave some at the top of the show. Tyler Lockett is, I mean, this guy had 6 touchdown catches of 30 or more yards last year. And he did that with a pretty low ADOT for him. It was like 10.4 yards or something, which is on the low side for Lockett, yet he caught all these deep touchdown passes. And on 5 of those 6 were deep balls. One of them had a decent amount of yak. So I don't know. I would say he got pretty lucky with his touchdowns, considering how few end zone and red zone and green zone targets he had. But this guy does it every year. He's a number 2 receiver every single year. Heath, you have him. Sorry, where do you have him?
20th? 21st?
21st. And Jamie has Tyler Lockett 31st. Heath, you're up.
Yeah, I think, like, you could say that he was a little lucky on the touchdowns last year, but it's the 4th or the 5th straight year he scored 8, 9, or 10 touchdowns. It's just kind of what he does. He does get used in wildly different ways. I don't know how many wide receivers you go look at the last 4 years ADOT, and it goes 12, 4, 9, 7, 14, 6, 10, 6. But the thing is, he can do all of those things. And that's a really great attribute. It doesn't really matter how this Seattle uses him. He's going to be successful. I'm a little bit worried about the age. I do think that DK should score more touchdowns this year. Maybe he scores 8 this year instead of 9, Lockett. But it's hard for me to doubt him.
Yeah. Jamie, you have him ranked at his age, 31.
That's a part of it. You know, I at some point there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown. I was just looking at my rankings while you were talking. So, like, I have him behind Pittman and McLaurin and Evans, and I've said this a lot. You know, going back the last couple of years, that, you know, we say top 24 because, you know, 12 in 2 receiver leagues, but there's 40 receivers that are starting caliber receivers in fantasy at this point. You know, and so if you like him better, you'll probably get him at a better cost. He's now become, I think, the new Brandon Cooks of just continuing to be just best draft value at that position. And so I think there's a lot to love about Tyler Lockett. I just don't want to overdraft him. But yeah, he's probably going to end up being better than McLaurin. He'd probably end up being better than Mike Evans. That's probably a adjustment I should make in all formats, because he's got, at this point at least, a better quarterback than those guys do. You know, and so give Geno Smith some respect, which is probably something that I didn't do when I first put him in that spot. But I think he could finish anywhere from 15 to 30 and be off by 15 by a point or 2, because that's just how good the position is. So I have no problem with Tyler Lockett. I just think at some point age is going to catch up to a guy that needs his speed to get downfield.
Okay. And here's tell me if this matters to you. If you include the playoffs, and to be fair, you have to include one game where he played 32% of the snaps. He had more than 68 yards in one of his last 12 games. You know, he was great before that. The first 5 games, he averaged over 85 yards a game, I think. Something like that. No, 81.2 yards per game. But Tyler Lockett, last 12 games, one game with more than 68 yards. Does that matter to you guys?
Isn't that kind of been the case in Seattle for the last few years, that their passing game starts off well and doesn't end up well because their defense gets better and their run game gets better?
I don't think that was the case this time, because they actually started throwing more. I mean, you're right that it wasn't as good. Because Geno Smith just didn't play quite as well, especially down the stretch. There's some interceptions, but I don't even if that is the case, I doubt Lockett's ever had a stretch like that. In his last 11 games, I don't have his pace. Sorry, but it's, you know,
that could be the indication of, you know, age catching up with a guy.
That's what I was asking. Yeah, so I find these stats a lot, and then a lot of times they make they're just completely random, make no difference for the next year. This one's interesting because he's 31. So, Heath, you're muted.
You know what my response is going to be, right?
Well, no, I don't.
You said he had one game with more than 68 receiving yards.
Yeah.
In his last 12. That's 100% true. But of course, the first thing I go look at, he had 5 games between 60 and 68 receiving yards.
Yeah. But that's not so great. I mean, overall,
It's not so great, but if in a 17-game season, if you average 65 yards a game, that's a 1,000-yard season, isn't it? 1,105 yards.
But he didn't average that. He didn't even come close. I mean, that's,
Well, I think he came pretty close to averaging that if you take out the 15-yard game when he had 32% of the snaps. I think he was very, very close to that.
And I think he was a lot worse after he came back from the ankle injury. The last 3 games, 2 regular season games, one of which he barely played, and then the playoffs. But okay,